Hello and welcome to Property Matters. 40 minutes of lively chat and debate around all matters property designed to be of interest to someone who has an interest in property. Property Matters is supported by Fairview International and also Town and Country Property Auctions Limited, London. We've got lots of things to talk about today, and as always, we'd love your comments in the comments section below the video, or of course, if you'd like to email us, propertymatterstv@gmail.com. As always, joining us, our property expert each week is Joe Joshi. Good morning, Joe.
Good morning, and I love the new Merry Christmas entry there we have.
Yeah, we're very festive, aren't we?
Yes, the festive season's on, and somebody said to me, I need you to brighten it up, so I thought I'll make it in pink today as opposed to my usual greys and blues, just to sort of bring that little bit of cheer to the festive season this year.
Well, certainly the property market is very festive at the moment. News this week in that prices are up, or rather, inquiries are up 36% year on year in 2020, despite the pandemic. Fueled presumably by stamp duty holiday hunters, boosting prices in the last month in November by 1.2%, Joe.
That's amazing, isn't it? It's a much better boost than you're going to get in your bank account, that's for sure, at this precise moment in time. At 1.2% on a month-to-month or year-on-year increase is excellent news for property investors, property buyers. Probably more for property sellers if they're going to be selling, because obviously house prices have been creeping up. But most of that is due to the fact that, as we know, that this year there has been time. And time is the key thing here of actually stopping and thinking about how they structure, where they're going to go for, where they're going to move, and how it's going to work in their life, Paul. And I think the reality of it is that, the pandemic has reshaped our way of thinking.
Yeah, it's interesting because if you look at the 3 months, it's nearly 4% that prices have grown. And it's been a year of two halves, really, hasn't it? Because things just ground to a halt for the first 6 months. Then, of course, as soon as the stamp duty holiday started to kick in, the whole market started to come alive. And we've just seen the whole year brought back to life by the last 6 months.
Yeah, and that just goes to show how important property is in all of our lives, no matter what and how and where we are. I mean, if you think about whether it's investors or people that want to buy their first home, or just generally moving because the opportunity has risen. Not only has that been through the fact that there is stamp duty holiday, which is up to £500,000, and that is looming. It's going to be here sooner than we think. Considering that it is at the end of March 2021, so people will be rushing to try to get that over and done with. But generally it's been time for them to sort of rethink how they're going to actually live going forward after the pandemic year of 2020.
And there's a lot more to be cheerful about this week because on Wednesday we've got the Help to Buy scheme kicking in.
Absolutely, and I think I brought that in our previous couple of programs where I've sort of said that the 16th of December is a mark date for the new Help to Buy scheme, where the government is supporting up to 20% on the outer areas and 40% up to on the inner London areas, potentially with deposit helps. So a message to all first-time buyers, really. If there's ever a great time to go and invest in property and put your foot on the ladder, now's the time. Go and have a look around, see what that. And I think if we did the same thing in about a month's time, you'll find that the figures have shot up even more, Paul. If people actually take that on board and say, okay, I understand where we are, but we now got to get onto the property ladder.
And I think we're spot on with that, because if you look at the news this week, Joe, you'll see that, for example, having left the higher LTV market back in March, Lloyd's has come back in, reintroducing its 90% LTV with a 10% deposit, obviously for first-time buyers. So it's getting big, I guess, when or interesting when the big boys come back in, Joe. And not least the fact that obviously they were presumably concerned about the property market back in March, perhaps, and then seeing the rush and the recovery, they thought, we want a piece of the action.
Yes, again, it's as you say, it's a two-half story there. At the beginning, when the whole news of the pandemic and everything else broke out, it's like anybody, any bad news, it's how you handle it, how we're going to control it, be it in a family, be it in your personal circumstances, be it in your work, be it in the country with the pandemic. We had to take stock and ask ourselves, what's the next step? And thank God that we have, whilst there's going to be criticism, we have people that, at the helm who try to do the best they can and steer it in the right way. And yes, it's not going to be for all, but ultimately they've managed to sort of steer it in the right direction. The vaccine has been found, though there's obviously question marks on all of the things there. But what started off pretty appalling is turning out to be pretty decent at the moment. That's not to take away, Paul, that all the members of family and friends that we've all lost during this time, you can't take the way of the sorrow and the losses that we've all had, and there's no accountability for that kind of loss. But in terms of getting some sort of order, some sort of direction in our lives back, it looks that we be on that sort of road to recovery, and the property is a good marker to work with. And if you can see that back in March, lenders were off the Richter scale, buy to let wasn't happening, people weren't sure, and kicked in certain mechanisms that has allowed us to actually get back on the track of things and start to show that maybe all is not lost at the end.
Yes, I mean, you can understand the bank's reticence because, I mean, they got their fingers burned in 2008 very badly when, particularly with commercial mortgages, they were doing things like 95%, and in some cases, even some of the Irish banks were doing 100% lending. So you can understand their reticence if they're looking at the market in March, they're not sure whether the prices are going to go. I mean, by giving a 90%, they could have easily ended up with customers in negative equity and a bad book.
Yeah, I guess we learn from our mistakes, and part of experience is always about looking back and asking, how did that go wrong? But not looking back to go back, looking back to just understand and study and realize that that's where the mistakes were, and hopefully that's where the mistakes won't be going forward. So I think they've all taken a cautious step. But from a property point of view, and someone who has been in the property for as long as I have, I will continue to stand in the corner of property and say it is undoubtedly the best form of investment, undoubtedly the safest form of investment that you're gonna get. It is a home, it is a house, it is something that you will always go and look at the commercial. I mean, there's going to be news there. Over the last couple of weeks, we had nothing but carnage on the high street, considering how many shops and things were going to close, what the landlords are going to be looking at there, how landlords that have not been paid by larger corporations for their rents and so forth. Everyone has to adjust, but that'll be something that will adjust, I'm sure, in 2021 going forward when that finds its ground as a commercial property. But certainly for the residential, the first-time buyers, the homeowners, and the people that make their sort of base as property, it's actually turned out to be relatively good news.
And also, we've got excitement in the buy-to-let market as loan-to-value seems to be increasing there. I guess trying to get a little piece here, the company Lambay on Property Industry Eye this week, talking about the fact they have two new products, a 2-year and a 5-year fix at 3.79 and 3.99 on loans of 100,000 up to 750. So how does that look, Joe?
Well, the buy-to-let market was put on a bit of a break for a number of reasons, Paul. And one of the reasons is obviously the government was looking to create a further tax, an increase on tax, and that's still not off the table as so to speak. I think their focus is on other matters. And so whilst that is the case, then make hay while the sun is shining, and of course having the loan to value change from buy to let and more lenders coming back into the marketplace is for sure going to be excellent news for those investors, those people that have been thinking, well, what am I going to do? And especially if you have had a long-term job, and that's probably one of my little beefs, that the older generation that have had long-term jobs that may have either been made redundant or lost their job or basically no longer are needed, they may have savings, and one of the things that they always tend to look to invest into is property, get a buy to let, and also where lenders may normally question their age in terms of whether they are able to do, even though they are good payers and been a steady Eddie all their life. So all of those things are also changing, Paul. Lenders are having to reconsider loan values to people that are perhaps of age, because how are they going to sort of support themselves in the future? How is that income coming? And so buy to let is an excellent news back for all people.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, because if I don't have a graph, I love a table, Joe. You know that. And what we have here, of course, is a table of rents for the last 12 months. So increase of 2.9% year on year, Joe. So the rental market looking quite healthy. 974 per calendar month is the average. If you include London, £828 per calendar month if you don't, which is a 5.6% year on year. So there's only three regions of the country, and that is the Northeast, Northern Ireland and Greater London, that have seen rents decrease. The rest of the country increasing. Is this a good time to be getting into buy-to-let if you're, like you just explained, someone who's got maybe some redundancy and you've got some cash and you're thinking about starting yourself up on your own? Is this a sensible time, or is there much more to it than that?
Well, thank you for bringing your charts once again, Paul. I'm forever wondering what you're going to throw at me, whether it's a graph or a table or some other thing. But you're obviously always testing me, and that's a good thing for me to know. But yes, again, really it points out that what has happened during this time and what is likely to happen going forward. People will continue to invest in property. People are looking at areas where they are getting more pound for their money, basically more property for their money. And if you look at those areas, other than the few that have not actually done well, most of that is because of what happened in the pandemic, where people started to think, well, I can afford to shift out. And renters equally have thought the same way, because if they can get a better value, more property for the money that they are paying. For example, in some parts of the country, where you might actually only end up getting a studio or a one bedroom for £800-900 or less, you might actually get a house for that in some other parts, which gives opportunity for your family to grow your family. And if you're not able to get on the ladder for buying property yourself, at least you've got the chance of renting a property that is actually going to make a good home for you and your family as that starts to grow. And that is where the generations are looking to invest. And if they've got a smaller redundancy package or had 30,000-40,000 pounds that they've managed to get, that is a great base to have a small deposit and some money going towards a property, which then can be rented and give you a good return on your investment. The problem is, and that's where the governments probably need to sort of sort themselves out at some stage, is that it drives everybody to the property market. Yesterday was the 12th of December, and it was the 12th of December last year when the government came into power, and I was on one of their sort of invites yesterday, just discussing the fact that what's happened. And of course they've had a challenge throughout the year, but it just made it very, very clear that going forward, the whole idea of moving towards the north and other parts of the country is becoming more and more a norm, as opposed to what you used to think, well, actually, I'll go there because that's the only place I can afford. It's because internet, people working from home, having the change of life, the way they work has actually really, really come through this year.
Yes, and certainly that's supported in those figures there. If you see the Northwest up 6.2%, Wales up 6.8%, East Midlands, not exactly the north, but certainly the middle of the country, at 7.3%. So certainly people looking to move north, presumably for better value.
Yes, as I just said, you're getting more for your money in terms of accommodation, and a good return going further out. It was always, the bright lights of the city, I guess, that is what attracts people, because that's where everybody is. The younger generation, the youth, will always go to places like London, and London is still a massive attraction. whilst it's having a little bit of a holiday at the moment in the property market. It's not such a bad thing for London because it does drive it. And if London is doing well, then everything follows well. But this time, I think it's slightly reversed. You know, the North is doing better in terms of investment and value for money. And London has probably got the brakes on. And that's probably quite nice for London to catch up and allow for the younger generation that have not perhaps been able to afford to buy before into London or invest into London, and now giving them a chance to get in there as well.
I want to move on to our last story, because this has been a big story in the news, and you, I'm sure, are aware of 4 biggest house builders in the UK currently under investigation when competition regulators found evidence of the way that leasehold properties were sold. And Barratt's has come out this week saying they're going to effectively call time on ground rent. So they're changing ground rents away to a 999-year lease and 0 ground rent over their new build homes. And this is not surprising when you consider that ministers announced when they did the new Help to Buy scheme starting this Wednesday, as we've already said, that you cannot charge ground rent on a Help to Buy scheme property. So clearly they've got to make another alternative. But would you like to just go through and explain ground rent to us, and in particular what is common hold, Joe?
Yes, so the ground rent, the reason why obviously the ground rent exists, or it has existed throughout its time, is I suppose the easiest way to say is let's build a block here. And so you have the ground, the land that you might own, and then of course you're going to then put on 10 flats in a block above it. Theoretically, nobody can actually claim that the land that those flats are built on is theirs, because they own maybe the first floor or the second floor or whatever that might be. So that will be the ownership in the lease. And traditionally, those leases back in the times when I started were about 99 years, with a view to thinking, well, 99 years is enough time for people. And with that came along a service charge if you were a block that was under management. If you're a masonette, which was basically your own front door, that didn't have a service charge. But the ground rent went to the landlord. So in other words, the landlord turned around and said that basically for the land that you're living on, the block that is built on, I'm going to charge you a nominal ground rent. Now, again, going back in history, that was probably something like £50 a year. It wasn't a great deal. But as time has gone on, that's become more and more expensive. I suppose land became expensive, so they thought the ground rent could go. So some of those ground rents were 100, 150, 200, and maybe up to 300. And in London, it could have been much, much more higher amounts. So that became another payment, though annually, added to the service charges that went.
I think we have another problem with Joe's internet. Joe, so if we can get Joe back, that will be really good. It seems to have frozen on me. So what we'll do is we'll talk and try and get Joe back into...
Tenant, a premium. Did you lose me there?
Yes, we did, yeah. You're back now, though.
All right. They are able to charge them a premium in order to increase the years of the lease again. And that's probably been the biggest problem in flat buying and selling. So it's excellent news now that they've decided to change it to a 999 year going forward. It means that there is comfort for the lender, it's comfort for the seller, and it's certainly comfort for the buyer, knowing that they don't have to go back begging with a begging bowl to the landlord after maybe 30 odd years have expired on their lease, who then says, yeah, I'm quite happy to increase it, but I'm going to charge you another £30,000 to do that. And people don't have that. So, it's excellent news that that the builders are doing what they're doing. And of course, it will take time for everybody else to follow suit. But I think it's great news. And obviously that combined with the Help to Buy scheme being launched on the 16th and the new developers are also quite clever on that, because what they're going to do is they're going to actually focus all of the first time buyers to their new developments, knowing that that is a more safer. So, my message to the second time people are probably that they need to think how they can deal with that. So the lower, the smaller landlords, instead of losing the opportunity, they may have to think about increasing the leases, for lesser amounts, just so that they can, because there will come a time that their properties will become not saleable at all. And people just simply will start going, well, I'd rather go and buy a brand new one where I'm getting a 999-year lease, and my lender's prepared to lend it, and I know that I can sleep, easy at night, knowing that I haven't got to pay somebody else. So, it'll be a game changer, definitely.
You and I know, though, Joe, that lost revenue, they won't just accept that loss. There'll be another way they'll claim that back. Do you think this is just going to go on the price of the property in the first place?
Yes, I mean, prices will be affected immediately on that, wouldn't they? Because they think, well, actually, you're getting a 999-year lease as opposed to 125. So whereas you might have paid, so that extra 3, 4, 5, 10,000 pound will probably go on the property. But if you're doing it on a mortgage basis, then and knowing that in the long game you actually are free of trouble, then somebody will not have a real issue paying the extra £5,000. It's a bit like saying, well, actually, you can buy a parking space. You couldn't have it, but if you have a parking space for another £10,000, then yes. But later on, when you come to sell it, having that parking space actually adds value rather than not having it. Because there's always a good number of people who always have a car. So there'll always be a reason why that investment would have a return at a later date.
Let's take a look at our property of the week. Joe, we've got a property in Yorkshire, I believe, that is an interesting find. It's in the auction for Town and Country Property Auctions. And this is a commercial property that has certain opportunities under PDV, permitted development rights.
Yes, so here we have a property in Keighley, just outside Bradford. Again, for those that have been looking at the investment in the northern part of the country, will see that this is an excellent opportunity for a would-be developer, would-be multiple house homeowner type of property. It's about 7,500 square foot, formerly probably 3 terraced houses in its lifetime. With sort of lower ground, first top, and then right into the roof space in terms of the space that they've got. So quite a nice size property. Conversion under the permitted development rights, which allows for offices to convert into residential. We're happy to advise and guide those that require that. Is pretty much a given to a large extent, providing they meet a certain number of points and criteria, which again we can advise and guide on. And the property will potentially turn into somewhere between 9 and 12 units. So that's lettable units, flats, small flats. But again, again, it's a stepping stone for first-time buyers. So we're guiding that at £300,000. And if you do the sums, it's cheap money, cheap property, but it does need someone who's got the eye for DIY, and I think that's where the key is. So by all means, anyone that's interested, download it from our website, Town and Country Property Auctions London, or give me a call and I'll be happy to discuss it further. But yeah, great opportunity, great investment. And a great DIY project.
And clearly a project for somebody with a little experience in this field, one would suggest.
Yes, I mean, there's a lot of the number of calls I get nowadays for people who want to convert offices into residential. It has a multiple use on that pool. I mean, it's not just for residential, but student accommodation generally, or providing a service to some of the government bodies where they need accommodation for people that are unable to, so local councils, etc. So a lot of scope really, and yeah, definitely with someone who's got a bit of an eye to convert into 9 or 10 or 12 flats, depending what they can squeeze in, as long as they're not shoeboxes. There's a scope there.
Lovely, thank you. That moves us on to our main talking point of the week, Joe, and obviously the news is dominated at the moment by the Brexit negotiations, and we really are in a flux. And today is the day, Sunday the 13th, when there has to be a decision made. So clearly, it's last knockings as we speak. So, how do you think that's going to play out into the property market, and what should people do to protect their investments?
Interesting, isn't it? When you think back in 2020, we've had a complete roller coaster of ride, and so many new bywords for the Oxford Dictionary probably have decided to materialize. And I can think of a few that comes out. I'm sure if we run a competition, everybody will come up with loads more. For example, we've got the bubble, and so the bubble was always there, but now we'll have to be in a bubble of some sort. There's pandemic was always there. Then we've got Brexit was the big byword prior to coronavirus or COVID-19. That's another new word that came into our lives. And lockdown. Whilst there was lockdown in many ways of lots of things, probably, as a child, if you're told you're not allowed to do that, you were in a lockdown at home. But this lockdown had a completely different meaning. And so new words featured in our lives in 2020 are going to be going forward in a big way. And that then brings us back to the end of 2020. And of course, Brexit talks are rife. They are back on the table. Our focus, as the Prime Minister said in his question thing yesterday, the less he hears about COVID-19 in 2021, the better he would feel. However, he has another challenge on his table, and that is what Brexit's going to do. And recently, the more conversations I've had, people are saying, is Brexit now going to cause us problem in the property market? Is it going to devalue? Are there going to be less people as the Europeans decide to boycott us and don't want to come over here, and we can't go over there, and so forth? So there is a new page, a new chapter, as I would say, in our book that's about to turn over and say to you that this is what's going to happen in terms of property in the Brexit years. I suppose my view on that, Paul, is going to be that I don't think personally there's going to be, we've been through a lot, as a country, as people, we are resilient. We've shown that. We've shown our resilience in 2020 with the pandemic. Yes, it didn't fit all of us. Yes, it wasn't right for all of us. And yes, we've had lots of losses of family, loved ones, and so forth. But we're still here, and we will remain that way. That's one good thing about the United Kingdom and the people of the United Kingdom, is that we're all fighters, and we fight back each time. And we've fought the pandemic. We've got a virus. Hopefully, that will start to see the end of some parts of the 2020. And now we've got Brexit on the table, and Brexit says that we want our own sovereignty. That's the bottom line. That's where the bugbear is. And we've been part of Europe. I'm not saying that I'm happy to leave Europe. I think it's it's a little bit of a family, and therefore people have to have the change. But change happens to everybody. It doesn't matter how you look at it. And in the property market, that change will be in the same way. People will look at it and but my reassurance to all of our investors, viewers, are that, we're an island. We can't really expand out. Our demand for property in this country is always going to be high. It's been high for the years that I've actually been in property. And I'll continue to go back to that and remind everybody that, the first house that I sold back in 1980 was 34,950, and the same house today is closer to £600,000. It hasn't had a reverse gear. There's been a few neutrals and a few stops and starts along the way, but fundamentally it's all gone forward. And this will be another area of us maybe having a slight neutral, maybe a slight stop, and then once it's all settled down, and we got ourselves our direction. House prices and property will continue to be a great form of investment and a great place. I have a line that says we gauge our wealth by the value of our home. And the reason I say that is that when prices are doing well and house prices are doing well, we all feel we're doing well. And I think if you take that on board and say it's just parked, you know, you can gauge your wealth by the value of your home. You can just park it and say, let's get Brexit out of the way. Let's let that settle down. It's not going to be a backward gear. It's only an opportunity for those that couldn't get on the ladder. So if house prices were to stop, for argument's sake, it only gives a window of opportunity for our youngsters, the kids, and other people that want to invest a chance to step for their first step on the run of the ladder of property. When you look at the investment side, England is probably still one of the most safest places security-wise, and families from all over the world will continue to invest for their education, for the things that England actually provides, apart from, of course, the National Health Service. So I think my message would be, you know, keep calm and carry on, as the good old British saying says. And I think we will do fine as far as that's concerned. My lesson really for today on that would be, if there's such a lesson to do, is that whilst things like that happen, take stock of your property. Take a look, step outside, and ask yourself, you know, how's it looking? Is it looking good? Is my neighborhood looking good? Are the roads nice? You know, are the councils making an effort to keep it clean? All of those things are huge points that you must take on board. And as homeowners, it is really up to you to make the noises, to make sure that the environment, the area where your kids are, where your home is looked after well. I mean, it starts with yourself first. If you can do it, and you get your neighbors to do it, you get the street to do it. And as time goes on, you will have, because a value on a home and the purchaser, the interest on the home is always done by the people that come and step outside and go, I want to buy this property. And the first 10 seconds of them standing outside your property, they'll decide whether they actually want to go in or not, because the environment's not right. So, you know, my lesson for this time of the year, probably going towards the end of our pandemic year and beginning of our Brexit years again, is maybe if everything else stops, take stock of your own situation, look at the property. If you need some TLC, some DIY, and some, you know, general tidy up on the outside, which helps your street, because it's your street that is they're going to value. When we look at the valuations of a property, we look at the value of the property, but we also look at the area and the location. And if the area and the location doesn't warrant the prices, it's only because you've let it down. You've let yourselves down in doing that. So my message to you always will be, is to, you know, put the money that you spend in buying a property, money that we've talked about, getting a mortgage and borrowing, getting mum and dad to support, all of the things that we cover in our program, ultimately is to buy that home. That home doesn't necessarily only mean what's on the inside, it also means what's the outside. Because when you pull up in your car outside your house, you want to know that that is a good investment, and that's what you protect. So my message to everybody was, you look at the programs that are on the general TV channels about gardening and about DIY and how important it is to have the outside done. Well, just take a step outside and look and say, you know, is that what I need to do? Are my neighbors supporting what I'm trying to do? And if not, you know, you need to create maybe a hint, a group, a neighborhood watch, whatever you need to do to protect the value and to protect the area that you live in and to protect your investment, because ultimately, whilst it's a home, it's also an investment. And it's got to be important to do that. So if it needs a bit of TLC and so forth, that's the time. So when things are on a slow, you know, and the market is not telling you what you can do, what you can't do, then do the things that you can do. And the things that you can do is maintain, look after, get the weeding done, sort the grass out, cut the trees, you know, do the bits that could matter, that when somebody does come to look at it, if you decide ever to sell it, good. If you don't decide to sell it, it means that whilst everything is looking nice and all the neighbors make an effort, the value of your home is ultimately increasing, because it's an area where people go, I'd like to live there. You know, I've driven down that road and that's a really nice road. How many times have you done that yourself? Put yourself in that position. You drive down the street or you look past a house and you go, that's a nice house. This is a nice road. I want to live there. This is a road I'd like to live in. Well, this is exactly what buyers do when they come to you. This is exactly what tenants do when they come to rent a property from you. They look at the area and they think, do I feel safe? Do I want to live here? Is it full of rubbish? Are the streets full of, you know? So at the end of the day, you've got to make your own effort, as far as I'm concerned. Protect what you invest in. That'll be my message. That'll be my word to you over this period. And I'm sure I'll get criticized for something by people, but I'm just generalizing that at the end of the day, you know, the best thing you could do is take a step out. And I have this discussion with shopkeepers all the time. All the time I have this discussion, you know, because they want the best money for their shop, but actually they cover the whole shop with stickers for other people's ads. And you can't even look through the shop, which is why many people go into London this time of the year. Why do we go and see the lights? I want to go and see the lights. I want to go see the lights. We want to go and see the shop windows, go to Harvey Nichols or Selfridges, because they use those windows to attract people in. It's the same thing. That window is what we do. We buy with our eyes. We got to go out there and look at those things and say, would somebody buy this? And that's what I would look at. So hopefully that will give you some indication of, whilst Brexit, pandemic, vaccine, you know, lockdown, all of those things have been through our lives, we still value our home. And that is what gives us the basis of our family.
And I guess there's quite a lot for property owners abroad to consider in a Brexit situation. I mean, obviously they've known about Brexit for 3 years now, but I guess they're still praying that there will be some kind of deal. How do you think no deal might affect owners abroad?
I think that no deal for owners abroad ultimately is really not going to matter. It matters only because that's the discussion on the table today. And the media tells us that that's what matters. But actually, when it comes down to, you know, the reality is, if you're going to have your child in an education in Oxford or in Cambridge or in London, wherever that's going to be, they will invest in the UK. It is still the safest place for investment all over the world. When there's a crisis, and war breaks out, a lot of people run to the safer havens, and UK is one of the safest havens there is. Through my lifetime, I've met many people, many government ministers who've left their own places and come and put their investment in the UK. So Brexit or no Brexit, I don't think that will matter. Like I've always said, we're an island. We are a small place with a big heart and a huge value. And I think that people will continue to invest. Yes, short term, people will turn around and say, this is not right. This is not the way it should be. But we've got to get on. You know, it's not I always say, control the things and deal with the things that we can actually control and do ourselves. We're not in a position to control and deal with that. We made a decision some years back to leave the EU. We now got to accept that and get on with it. And yes, others will turn around and say, that's not right. But you have to remember, they're looking at it from their point of view. They're looking at it from their point of view and thinking, actually, you know what, it doesn't suit us. Well, we'd like to just come and go. But life is like that. Look at what's happened this year alone. There's a lot of things that we didn't want to do. Did you all want to sit at home for 3 or 4 months and worry? Did you want to be walking around with masks? Did you want to be, you know, having sanitizers left, right, and center? Did you want to be, you know, worrying about whether you can sneeze or cough on somebody? No, we didn't. But you know what? We got through it. We're getting through it, and we'll get through Brexit.
Well said. We were hoping that Russell Bahar will be with us today, diaries permitting, but diaries did not permit on this particular week. But we're delighted to say that we have arranged for Russell to join us next week. He's from the Asian Jewish Business Network, and there is quite a connection between the Jewish community and the Asian community, isn't there, Joe?
Yes, I think the reason that I would love to have had Russell today join us, and part of the program is about understanding how communities have a cross section, irrespective of, you know, maybe the dreaded religious part of it as difference. put that aside, everybody has the same aim and game, especially in the property world, and that is that it is the safest form of investment that they actually will make. And the Jewish community and the Asian community and many others. It's not just that. It's just that it just happens that we have a relationship and a friendship with Russell and the Asian Jewish business community, of which I'm a member of. And I think he's done a fantastic job in bringing the two communities together. It's quite a unique thing. And I just wanted to obviously give Russell the opportunity and also, share his views and what he's learned in doing that networking program, and how that really works well within the Asian Jewish communities as well, and the common goals that we all share, and what are the drivers. So I'm looking forward to getting Russell's view. I've got my own views. I'm sure you've worked out that I have many of my own views about everything, but
nearly as many as my charts.
Nearly as good as your charts and graphs, Paul. So you bring your charts and graphs, and I'll give you the views. But the reality is that it's always good to learn what other people are doing, how they're adjusting in their communities, and is there some similarity? And the guests that we will bring on as we go on, as we establish this, will all have their own views to bring with them. We have still got mortgage brokers to join. The chap that was going is obviously away at the moment, but he will come along. And we've got lawyers to do their bit, and of course Lalji will join us from Solaria in terms of what he's doing. So there's going to be a whole thing. Our subject here is always about covering what we can with property. And again, going forward, we will look to do clinics and sort of just sort of nurseries and small networking groups in the next year for some of the properties that we've got. Some first-time buyer evenings, which we will highlight as time goes on. If you follow us on the pages, we will let you know when those are. Every opportunity, and anyone that has any questions, you can always drop us a line at Property Matters. Or contact me directly. I'm quite happy to sort of have a discussion with you about anything that you feel that it needs doing and looking at, from planning, from inception to selling it to the end. And so it's a great. I love it. 40 years, and I still love it as much as I did when I first took duck to water. Really, it's been my passion. And hopefully you'll see that. And one of the reasons we decided to do this program was because, I wanted to share my experience, my knowledge. And so so that people can understand that, we're here to assist and help in the best possible way that we can to achieve their goals. By achieving their goals, we achieve our goals. And ultimately that's a win-win for all the people.
Well, the easiest way to get in contact with us, of course, is to email us, propertymatterstv@gmail.com. Or if you just like to comment on the video below, then you'll be that will come to us, and we'll be able to contact you and help you out in any way we can. And any feedback on the program would be most welcome as well. Anything you think that we do well or anything we could do better, we'd love to hear your views, Joe and myself. So we have been beaten by time once again. We're over our 40 minutes. One of these days we'll get it exactly 40 minutes, but who really worries on a Sunday morning, hey? There we are then, Joe. Thank you so much indeed for your time this morning and your words of wisdom as always. We thank all of our viewers for watching today. And of course, we'll see you with Russell Belhar next week for Property Matters.